Namaste. Welcome back to Samskriti. We are in the 12th Sarga of Yudha Kandam in the Adhyatma Ramayanam series. Sri Rama looked at Vibheeshana, Hanuman, Angada, Lakshmana, Sugriva, Jambavan and others and spoke to them with a contented mind. I have killed Ravana today on the strength of your arms. Your holy fame will last so long as the sun and moon abide. By reciting these exploits of yours in relation to me, which can remove the sins of people and purify the world, men will attain the supreme goal. In the meantime, seeing the fallen body of Ravana, Mandodari and all other women who were under Ravana's protection fell down before Ravana's body and began to bemoan his death and lament in grief. Even Vibheeshana was overwhelmed with remorse and fell by Ravana's side and lamented most woefully. Thereupon Rama said to Lakshmana, O Manada, you console Vibheeshana and also enlighten him about his duties. Let him do the cremation of his brother. What is the benefit of delaying it now? Mandodari and other wives of Ravana are falling to the ground and woefully lamenting. Let him come forward and pacify them. On being so instructed by Rama, Lakshmana came near Vibheeshana, who was lying motionless like a dead body by the side of Ravana's corpse. To the sorrow-stricken Vibheeshana, Lakshmana spoke, O Vibheeshana, the one for whom you are grieving and lamenting, who is he to you? What was he to you before his body was generated? What relation he has now after death and hereafter? After all, who are you to him? Just like a particle of sand comes and goes under the influence of the flow of water, the creature who has got a body too is subjected to union and separation under the influence of Kala. Just as in a flowing river, particles of sand and water come together for a time and are separated by the current, so are men joined and separated in this world by the flow of time. Among the seeds sown, some sprout and produce other seeds, while some perish without sprouting. Their relationship is casual. Just so are the relationships brought about by the force of the Lord's Maya between beings born of other beings. All of us, you, he, and all others have been born under the effect, control, influence, and at the behest of Kala. We are all subservient to it. Birth and death are predestined, that is, one's birth and death will occur as predetermined in respect of time and place. The Supreme Lord, who is unborn and unmotivated, engages himself in creation like a child. He plays with the help of these beings who are not free but are under his control. He makes them the cause of generation and destruction among themselves. A body is always born of another body, ensouled by a jiva, just as a seed can come out of another similar seed. But the jiva is eternal while the body is short-lived. This relationship between the body and the jiva is not real but born of delusion and ignorance. The various differentiating forms of birth, growth, death, and enjoyment of fruits of karma attributed to the self are like the attribution to the fire of the shape that it assumes, wholly due to the fuel that it burns. In contact with the fuel, the fire takes various forms and shapes according to the form and shape of the fuel. But the fire in itself has no such form. It only burns and shines. So also, none of the attributes and experiences of the body really belong to the self, who is only the witness. They appear to be that of the self because of the connection of the seer with the body arising out of ignorance. Even when a man is alive, there is no experience of samsara for him in deep sleep, as there is no sense of I there. In the same way, for the liberated one who is without the sense of I, the objects of worldly life do not shine. Therefore, know all this to be a mental creation born of Maya, and hence abandon the false sense of I and mine. Fix your mind on Rama, who is none but the Lord who has taken a human form. He is the Supreme Being, the highest Self, who, though transcendent, has assumed a human form, releasing the mind little by little from its entanglement with the external objects by recognizing that such contacts are harmful. Connect it with the bliss that is Rama. This you must do by gradually detaching your soul from all the attachments and relationships it has with the external world. All these relationships, mother, father, brother, kith and kin, well-wishers, etc., exist because of the sense of identification with the body. With the power of discrimination, when one is able to differentiate the self from the body, then it realizes that no one is its mother, father, or friend. It is as a result of false knowledge that there are ideas like wife, home, and other possessions. Objects of this materialistic and illusionary world, various kinds of wealth, army, treasury, attendants, kingdom, landed property, and sons and relatives are all born of ignorance. Therefore, they are all of momentary duration and are impermanent like a bubble of water. Always contemplating on Him in one's heart, in a spirit of devotion, and undergoing the predetermined enjoyments and sufferings born of one's own action, that is prarabdha, perform your duties like governing the country, etc. Now, abandon your mood of sorrow and get up. Not worrying about the past or future, you must focus on the present and behave according to the tenets of probity, propriety, and righteousness. Thereby, you will not be affected by the evils of samsara. Sri Rama orders you to perform the funeral rites of your brother according to scriptural dictates. Console all the grieving and weeping women folk. O you wise and intelligent Vibheeshana, let them go back to Lanka. Do not delay any further. Hearing these words of wisdom from Lakshmana, Vibheeshana abandoned sorrow and delusion and went to meet Rama. The righteous Vibheeshana, having pondered over the words of Lakshmana on right conduct, decided to obey Rama's instructions and spoke in reply, O Lord, I do not wish to cremate a person who was merciless, murderous, untruthful, unrighteous, immoral, and a promiscuous adulterer. Hearing these words, Rama was much pleased and said, Enmity extends only up to death. Our objective has been achieved. That is, we have finished our job of killing him. Since he is dead, there is no further cause of animosity or ill will. So, perform his funeral rites. He is now as dear to me as he is to you. Complying with Rama's order, Vibheeshana respectfully carried out his instructions swiftly. He consoled the wise queen Mandodari with calm and soothing words. A firm adherent of Dharma, he now advised all his relatives to arrange for the funeral of Ravana as soon as possible. He now made a funeral pyre according to scriptural injunctions and then performed all those obsequial rites for Ravana along with his ministers and relatives according to prescribed procedures. Then he duly consigned the body of Ravana to the flames by lighting the funeral pyre in the prescribed manner. He also completed offering of the fire ritual in duly traditional and sanctified manner. Then he took bath and with wet clothes still on his body, he offered a palm full of water having sesame seeds and soft grass blades floating in it to the departed soul as per established tradition for performing funeral rites. He then put his head to the ground as a token of respect and reverence to the departed soul and then repeatedly consoled the grieving women and persuaded them to go back to the city. When all the Rakshasa women had thus gone back, Vibheeshana in all humility went and stood before Rama. In the company of Lakshmana and Sugriva and the army, Sri Rama now rejoiced on having eliminated his enemy, just like Indra felt after slaying the demon Vritra. Then Matali, the heavenly charioteer, circumambulated Sri Rama and with his permission went back to the heavens. Sri Rama then said to Lakshmana in a very joyous mood, I have already given the kingdom of Lanka to Vibheeshana. Still, you must go to Lanka with him and get him duly anointed in the proper ceremonial manner to the accompaniment of all mantras. Being commanded thus, Lakshmana asked the monkeys to bring water from the ocean in golden vessels, and with that he performed the Rakshasa leader's ceremonial bath of installation. After that, accompanied by a large crowd of the citizens of Lanka with numerous varieties of gifts in their hands, Vibheeshana, along with Lakshmana, came to Rama and made prostrations before him. Seeing Vibheeshana installed as a king, Rama and Lakshmana were very much pleased and felt satisfied that they had done a duty that they owed to themselves. Rama now embraced Sugriva and said, "O heroic one, with your help, I have been able to conquer the mighty Ravana and have been able to appoint Vibhishana to the throne of Lanka." Then he addressed Hanuman, who was standing by his side in all humility. "O Hanuman, take the consent of Vibhishana and go to the palace of Ravana. Give Sita all the news about the death of Ravana and other events, and then bring to me her reply without any delay." At this command of Rama, the most wise and intelligent son of wind god Hanuman entered Lanka and was welcomed by the Rakshasas. Going to Ravana's palace, he saw underneath the Shimshapa tree the sorrow-stricken Sita surrounded by Rakshasa women and always engaged in the contemplation of Rama. In all humility, Hanuman made a prostration to Sita. Then with joined palms, he stood humbly before her with deep devotion. Seeing him, Janaki first remained silent. Then she remembered the earlier occasion. Recognizing him as Rama's messenger, her face at once lit up with joy. Seeing her calm and cheerful face, Hanuman now began to communicate to her the message he had brought from Rama. He said, "O goddess, with the help of Sugriva and the cooperation of Vibhishana, Sri Rama, along with Lakshmana, has crossed over to Lanka with an army of monkeys and destroyed Ravana along with his sons and all his forces. After that, he installed Vibhishana as the king of Lanka. He has now sent me to you to convey this joyful news." Hearing this gladdening message from her husband, Sita, with her voice choked with a feeling of joy, replied, "What shall I give you now for bringing this joyous news? I think there is no jewel or gem or ornament in the whole of 3 worlds that can be a fitting reward for your sweet words." At these words of Vaidehi, the exalted monkey said in reply, "More important than the treasure of gems and jewels, as well as the kingdom of gods for me, is the fact that I can behold Sri Rama, who, having eliminated the enemy, is victorious and present with a calm and peaceful mind." Hearing these words of Maruti, Maithili said to him, "O giver of joy, all the virtues reside in you. Now I am anxious to see Rama. May Rama be pleased to give permission for that without delay." Hanuman, agreeing to convey this message to Rama, departed after making prostrations to her. Reaching Rama's presence, he narrated to him verbatim all that Sita wanted to convey through him. He said, "O Rama, she for whose sake all these activities were undertaken and this victory won, and who represents the reward of all those actions, that sorrow-stricken lady, Maithili, wants to meet you. You must see that goddess who is much tormented and overcome by misery, sorrow, and anguish." When Hanuman had said so, Rama, the wisest of men, resolved in his mind to do away with the Maya Sita and retrieve the original Sita, who was in the custody of fire god, for safekeeping. With this in mind, he said to Vibhishana, "O king, you now please go and bring Janaki. Let her take bath, put on clean clothes, and be adorned with all the ornaments befitting her stature, and then bring her to me with due respect and honor." Hearing this, Vibhishana took Maruti along with him and set off to Lanka. They got old and aged Rakshasa women to bathe Sita and adorn her with various ornaments and magnificent robes. Guarded by attendants wearing turbans and coats and with staffs in hand, Sita was brought in a beautiful palanquin. In their eagerness to have a look at Sita, the monkeys gathered all around. With bodyguards driving away the monkeys on all sides, and amidst the tumult produced thereby, Sita was brought before Rama. Seeing Sita astride the palanquin from a distance, Raghuttama said to Vibhishana, "Why are the guards driving away the monkeys? Let them all have a look at Sita, just as if she were their mother. So let her come walking to my presence." Hearing these words of Rama, Sita got down from the carriage and slowly walked towards Rama. Seeing the illusionary Sita, who was created for a definite purpose, Rama addressed her in words that were improper for him to have used. Being unable to bear those words of Rama, Sita said to Lakshmana, "O Lakshmana, make a pyre of fire for me in order that I may infuse confidence in Rama and make the world sure of my integrity." Lakshmana knew this to be in tune with Rama's ideas and assembled a huge pile of firewood and lit it. Then he came and stood silently beside Sri Rama. After that, Sita reverentially circumambulated Raghava, and in the presence of all, she made salutations to the Devas and holy men, and approaching the fire, said as follows with folded hands: May the fire god, who is the witness of everything in this world, protect me by showing in a way convincing to all that my heart has never wavered from its allegiance to Rama. With these words, Sita, the very embodiment of chastity, circumambulated the fire and fearlessly entered into its raging flames. Seeing Sita enter the fiercely burning fire, Siddhas and other semi-divine beings exclaimed, expressing their grief, Alas! How has the enlightened one Rama chosen to abandon Sita, who is none but his inseparable consort Lakshmi? This Sarga ends on this note. Let's move on with the chanting now. Adhyatma Ramayane Yudha Kande Dvadashaha Sargaha Shri Mahadeva Uvacha Ramo Vibheeshanam Drishtva Hanumantam Tathangadam Lakshmanam Kapirajancha Jambavantam Tathaparan Parituštena Manasa Sarvaneva Bravidvachaha Bhavatam Bahuviryena Nihato Ravano Maya Kirtistasyati Vah Punya Yavachandra Divakaro Kirtayishyanti Bhavatam Katham Trailokya Pavanim Mayopetam Kaliharam Yasyanti Paramangatim Etasminnantare Drishtva Ravanam Patitam Bhuvi Mandodari Mukha Sarvaha Striyo Ravana Palitaha Patita Ravanasya Shochantyah Paryadevayan Vibheeshana Shushochartaha Shokena Mahatavritaha Patito Ravanasya Bahudha Paryadevayat Ramastu Lakshmanam Praha Bodhayasva Vibheeshanam Karotu Bhratru Samskaram Kim Vilambena Manada Striyo Mandodari Mukhyaha Patita Vilapanti cha Nivarayatu tah sarva Rakshasi Ravana Priyaha Eva Mukto Tharamena Lakshmano Gad Vibheeshanam Vacha Mritakopante Patitam Mritakopamam Shokena Mahatavishtam Saumitriridam Abravit Yam shochasi tvam dukkhena koyam tava vibhishana tvam vasya katamah srishtehe puredani matah param yadvatto yaughapatitaha sikata yanti tadvashaha samyujyante viyujyante tatha kalena dehinaha yatha dhana suvaidhana Bhavanti na bhavanti cha Evam bhuteshu bhutani Preritani shamayaya Tvam che me vayamanye cha Tulyah kalavashodbhavaha Janma mrityu yada yasmat Tada tasmat bhavishyataha Ishwarah sarvabhutani Bhutai srijati hantyajaha Atmasrishtairasvatantraihi Nirapekshopi balavat Dehena dehino jiva Dehat deho bhijayate Bijadeva yatha bijam Dehanya iva shashvataha Dehi deha vibhagoyam Aviveka kritah pura Nanatvam janmanashascha Kshayo vruddhih kriyaphalam द्रष्टुराभान्त्यतद्धर्मा यथाग्नेर्दारुविक्रियाः तयिमे देहसंयोगादात्मना भान्त्यसद्ग्रहात् यथा यथा तथा चान्यध्यायतो सत्सदाग्रहात् प्रसुप्तस्यानहं भावात् तदा भाति न संसृतिः जीवतोऽपि तथा तद्वद्विमुक्तस्यानहं कृतेः तस्मान्मायामनोधर्मं जह्यहं ममताभ्रमं रामभद्रे भगवति मनोध्येह्यात्मनीश्वरे सर्वभूतात्मनि परे मायामानुषरूपिणी बाह्येन्द्रियार्थसम्बन्धात्याजयित्वा मनश्शनैः तत्र दोषान् दर्शयित्वा रामानन्दे नियोजय देहबुद्ध्या भवेद्भ्राता पिता माता सुहृत्प्रियः विलक्षणं यदा देहाज्जानात्यात्मानमात्मना तदा कः कस्य वा बन्धुः भ्राता माता पिता सुहृत् मिथ्याज्ञानवशाज्जाता दारागारादयः सदा शब्दादयश्च विषया विविधाश्चैव सम्पदः बलं कोशो भृत्यवर्गो राज्यं भूमिः सुतादयः अज्ञानजत्वात् सर्वे ते क्षणसङ्गमभङ्गुराः अथोतिष्ठ हृदा रामं भावयन् भक्तिभावितम् अनुवर्तस्व राज्यादि भुञ्जन् प्रारब्धमन्वहम् भूतं भविष्यदभजन् वर्तमानमथाचरन् विहरस्व यथा न्यायं भवदोषैर्न लिप्यसे आज्ञापयति रामस्त्वां यद्भ्रातुः साम्परायिकं तत्कुरुष्व यथा शास्त्रं रुदतीश्चापि योषितः निवारय महाबुद्धे लङ्कां गच्छन्तु माचिरं श्रुत्वा यथावद्वचनं लक्ष्मणस्य विभीषणः त्यक्त्वा शोकं च मोहं च रामपार्श्वमुपागमत् विमृश्य बुद्ध्या धर्मज्ञो धर्मार्थसहितं वचः रामस्यैवानुवृत्त्यर्थम् उत्तरं पर्यभाषत नृशंसमनृतं क्रूरं त्यक्तधर्मव्रतं प्रभो नार्होऽस्मि देव संस्कर्तुं परदाराभिमर्शिनम् श्रुत्वा तद्वचनं प्रीतो रामो वचनमब्रवीत् मरणान्तानि वैराणि निवृत्तं नः प्रयोजनम् क्रियतामस्य संस्कारो ममाप्येष यथा तव रामाज्ञां शिरसा धृत्वा शीघ्रमेव विभीषणः सान्त्ववाक्यैर्महाबुद्धिं राज्ञीं मन्दोदरीं तदा सान्त्वयामास धर्मात्मा धर्मबुद्धिर्विभीषणः त्वरयामास धर्मज्ञः संस्कारार्थं स्वबान्धवान् चित्यां निवेश्य विधिवत् पितृमेधविधानतः आहिताग्नेर्यथा कार्यं रावणस्य विभीषणः तथैव सर्वमकरोद्बन्धुभिः सह मन्त्रिभिः ददौ च पावकं तस्य विधियुक्तं विभीषणः स्नात्वा चैवार्द्रवस्त्रेण तिलान्दर्भाभिमिश्रितान् उदकेन च सम्मिश्रान् प्रदाय विधिपूर्वकं प्रदाय चोदकं तस्मै मूर्ध्ना चैनं प्रणम्य च ताः स्त्रियोऽनुनयामास सान्त्वमुक्त्वा पुनः पुनः गम्यतामिति ता सर्वा विविशुर्नगरं तदा प्रविष्टासु च सर्वासु राक्षसीषु विभीषणः रामपार्श्वमुपागत्य तदा तिष्ठद्विनीतवत् रामोऽपि सह सैन्येन स सुग्रीवः स लक्ष्मणः हर्षं लेभे रिपून् हत्वा यथा वृत्रं शतक्रतुः मातलिश्च तदा रामं परिक्रम्याभिवन्द्य च अनुज्ञातश्च रामेण ययौ स्वर्गं विहाय सा ततो हृष्टमना रामो लक्ष्मणं चेदमब्रवीत् विभीषणाय मे लङ्काराज्यं दत्तं पुरैव हि इदानीमपि गत्वा त्वं लङ्कामध्ये विभीषणम् अभिषेचय विप्रैश्च मन्त्रवद्विधिपूर्वकम् इत्युक्तो लक्ष्मणस्तूर्णं जगाम सह वानरैः लङ्कां सुवर्णकलशैः समुद्रजलसंयुतैः अभिषेकं शुभं चक्रे राक्षसेन्द्रस्य धीमतः ततः पौरजनैः सार्धं नानोपायनपाणिभिः विभीषणः ससौमित्रिः उपायनपुरस्कृतः दण्डप्रणाममकरोत् रामस्याक्लिष्टकर्मणः रामो विभीषणं दृष्ट्वा प्राप्तराज्यं मुदान्वितः कृतकृत्यमिवात्मानममन्यत सहानुजः सुग्रीवं च समालिङ्ग्य रामो वाक्यमथाब्रवीत् सहायेन त्वया वीर जितो मे रावणो महान् विभीषणोऽपि लङ्कायामभिषिक्तो मया नघ ततः प्राह हनूमन्तं पार्श्वस्थं विनयान्वितं विभीषणस्यानुमतेः गच्छ त्वं रावणालयं जानक्यै सर्वमाख्याहि रावणस्य वधादिकं जानक्याः प्रतिवाक्यं मे शीघ्रमेव निवेदय एवमाज्ञापितो धीमान् रामेण पवनात्मजः प्रविवेश पुरीं लङ्कां पूज्यमानो निशाचरैः प्रविश्य रावणगृहं शिंशपामूलमाश्रितां ददर्श जानकीं तत्र कृशां दीनामनिन्दितां राक्षसीभिः परिवृतां ध्यायन्तीं राममेव हि विनयावनतो भूत्वा प्रणम्य पवनात्मजः कृताञ्जलिपुटो भूत्वा प्रह्वो भक्त्याग्रतस्थितः तं दृष्ट्वा जानकी तूष्णीं स्थित्वा पूर्वस्मृतिं ययौ ज्ञात्वा तं रामदूतं सा हर्षात् सौम्यमुखी बभौ सतां सौम्यमुखीं दृष्ट्वा तस्यै पवननन्दनः रामस्य भाषितं सर्वम् आख्यातुम् उपचक्रमे देवी रामः स सुग्रीवो विभीषणसहायवान् कुशली वानराणाञ्च सैन्यैश्च सह लक्ष्मणः रावणं ससुतं हत्वा सबलं सह मन्त्रिभिः त्वामाह कुशलं रामो राज्ये कृत्वा विभीषणं श्रुत्वा भर्तुः प्रियं वाक्यं हर्षगद्गदया गिरा किं ते प्रियं करोम्यद्य न पश्यामि जगत्त्रये समं ते प्रियवाक्यस्य रत्नान्याभरणानि च एवमुक्तस्तु वैदेह्या प्रत्युवाच प्लवङ्गमः रत्नौघाद्विविधाद्वापि देवराज्याद्विशिष्यते हतशत्रुं विजयिनं रामं पश्यामि सुस्थिरम् तस्य तद्वचनं श्रुत्वा मैथिली प्राह मारुतिं सर्वे सौम्या गुणा सौम्य त्वय्येव परिनिष्ठिताः रामं द्रक्ष्यामि शीघ्रं ममाज्ञापयतु राघवः तथेति तां नमस्कृत्य ययौ द्रष्टुं रघूत्तमं जानक्या भाषितं सर्वं रामस्याग्रे न्यवेदयत् यन्निमित्तोऽयमारम्भः कर्मणां च फलोदयः तां देवीं शोकसन्तप्तां द्रष्टुमर्हसि मैथिलीम् एवमुक्तो हनुमता रामो ज्ञानवतां वरः माया सीतां परित्यक्तुं जानकीमनले स्थिताम् आदातुं मनसा ध्यात्वा रामः प्राह विभीषणं गच्छ राजन् जनकजामानयाशु ममान्तिकम् स्नातां विरजवस्त्राढ्यां सर्वाभरणभूषितां विभीषणोऽपि तच्छ्रुत्वा जगाम सह मारुतिः राक्षसीभिः सुवृद्धाभिः स्नापयित्वा तु मैथिलीं सर्वाभरणसम्पन्नामारोप्य शिबिकोत्तमे याष्टीकैर्बहुभिर्गुप्तां कञ्चुकोष्णीशिभिः शुभां तां द्रष्टुमागताः सर्वे वानरा जनकात्मजां तान् वारयन्तो बहवः सर्वतो वेत्रपाणयः कोलाहलं प्रकुर्वन्तो रामपार्श्वमुपाययुः दृष्ट्वा तां शिबिकारूढां दूरादथरगूतमः विभीषण किमर्थन्ते वानरान् वारयन्तिः पश्यन्तु वानराः सर्वे मैथिलीं मातरं यथा पादचारेण सायातु जानकी मम सन्निधिं श्रुत्वा तद्रामवचनं शिबिकादवरुह्य सा पादचारेण शनकैरागता रामसन्निधिं रामोऽपि दृष्ट्वा तां माया सीतां कार्यार्थनिर्मिताम् अवाच्यवादान् बहुशः प्राहतां रघुनन्दनः अमृष्यमाणा सा सीता वचनं राघवोदितं लक्ष्मणं प्राह मे शीघ्रं प्रज्वालय हुताशनं विश्वासार्थं हि रामस्य लोकानां प्रत्ययाय च राघवस्य मतं ज्ञात्वा लक्ष्मणोऽपि तदैव हि महाकाष्ठाचयं कृत्वा ज्वालयित्वा हुताशनं रामपार्श्वमुपागम्य तस्थौ तूष्णीमरिन्दमः ततः सीता परिक्रम्य राघवं भक्तिसंयुता पश्यतां सर्वलोकानां देवराक्षसयोषितां प्रणम्य देवताभ्यश्च ब्राह्मणेभ्यश्च मैथिली बद्धाञ्जलिपुटा चेदमुवाचाग्निसमीपगा यथा मे हृदयं नित्यं नापसर्पति राघवात् तथा लोकस्य साक्षी मां सर्वतः पातु पावकः एवमुक्त्वा तदा सीता परिक्रम्य हुताशनं विवेश ज्वलनं दीप्तं निर्भयेन हृदा सती दृष्ट्वा ततो भूतगणा ससिद्धाः सीतां महावह्निगतां वृषार्ताः परस्परं प्राहुरहो ससीता रामश्रियं स्वां कथमत्यजज्ञः इति श्रीमद्ध्यात्मरामायणे उमामहेश्वरसंवादे युद्धकाण्डे 12 सर्गः।